Hello and welcome back to the Emerald Knight Part 6. In this part, I wanted to talk about... I felt it was a good point to talk about the expression of the passage of time in writing. And what I mean by that is, say you have a part in the narrative that is where not much action is going on. Maybe nothing is really going on. Maybe the characters aren't even really saying anything. But for some reason or other, it becomes important to express time passing without explicitly saying so. Such as the hands on the clock moved from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I mean, unless that's important to the writing style or the character or the story in some shape or form. But in this session of writing, there are several moments, several parts where I simply say, the characters just stare at each other. And I thought that this was a good part to talk about this sort of thing. So, what keyed me in to expressing time passing in a narrative was not something that I read. I first came across, or was enlightened, so to speak, about this sort of thing around 4 years ago, and it wasn't in something that I read, but something that I watched. I was inspired from Japanese media, Japanese film especially, the old stuff, like Tokyo Story. And in movies like that, they have a lot of in between scenes with characters, they have a lot of environment shots of wind blowing through the trees or the grass, or waves rolling up on a beach, maybe architecture, something like that. And subconsciously at least, you're given the impression that time is passing by. And I thought that was a really smart way to communicate that. Showing environment. And I started implementing or being more conscious of that in my writing from then on. And, instead of... and you can implement it, in between dialogue. So, say characters are walking down a beach. And, they're talking, taking a stroll. And, maybe they're talking about something kind of serious. Or maybe something silly. Well, let's start with serious. So they're talking about something serious. And then in between dialogue pieces, as they're strolling, maybe you write about the environment, about the waves, how the waves roll up on the beach, to maybe give a inclination or the intonation, the illusion of how one character or the other is feeling. Maybe the waves rolled up on the beach languidly. Or if it's like a silly conversation, maybe a little hermit crab just walks up and just walks across their path or something. Something, you can use environment to your advantage to express time passing instead of explicitly saying, a moment passed before the character spoke again. I feel like that sort of thing is a little too easy to fall back on. I mean, especially for people that are just starting out. I mean, I did it. But yeah, it was a Japanese film, of all things, that keyed me into it. It wasn't from a book. No, once you pick up on that, you know, it becomes easier to, you know, see that stuff in reading while you're reading. And, you know, it doesn't have to be environment. It can, the passage of time can be expressed through memory or flashback or feeling or emotion or so on and so forth. There are multiple ways to do it. As an example, Toni Morrison's Beloved, like that book is just rife with exemplary passages and pages of the passage of time. And, you know, she never explicitly said time passed. For example, now I don't remember verbatim, but something along the lines of this. In one passage, or part of the story, there is a room. It's a very drab and desaturated room. But in that room, there's this blanket or this quilt that has two, like, vibrant orange patches in it, sewn into it. And the passage just focuses in on that. And it's kind of artistic in a way, like visually artistic in a way, because, like, the room is very drab and desaturated, but, like, there's these two orange spots that are bright. But that's a little bit of a tangent. Anyway, so the passage focuses in on that, and then we are pretty seamlessly taken into a memory or a flashback. And maybe it goes on for like 5 pages of the flashback, I don't know. But yeah. By the end of it, at least subconsciously, you're given the impression that time has gone by, maybe even a half hour, maybe longer, who knows? I mean, I don't have the context, so... But yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend Beloved. A lot of smart and clever writing. But anyway, that was, as an example, expressed time passing expressed through memory and flashback. Or you can kind of go the other way. For an example, from my own writing, from that fan fiction that I mentioned earlier, I remember a part that it was a section. It's like a little, almost like a poem, but it's not really a poem. It's just like one sentence, another sentence, a few more sentences. But they're like between ellipses. You know how some books or stories might break off the end of a scene or a part of the book with ellipses, and then maybe the next section is broken off with another ellipses. So it's like in between two ellipses. All I express, more or less, is just the passage of the seasons. So it's like autumn came, autumn went. Or no, it was summer. Summer was first, then autumn. Autumn came and went, then winter. And that's pretty much it. The reason I do that is because there was a lot of story before that section, and then there was going to be a lot of story after that section. But the years leap in time needed to happen, because that's when we come across the character again that is important to the story, that is more or less the focus of the story. That's when the character whom we're following comes in contact with that character again after about a year. So it was important to show the passage of time without going over every little detail that happened within that year, because it wasn't pertinent to the specific story that I was telling. As another example, a more telly kind of example, I remember there were plenty of passages in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name correctly, but in that series there was plenty of passages that communicated like either Lisbeth or Blomkvist, like like going about their business. Maybe they're on a computer, maybe they're writing something, maybe they researching something, looking through newspapers or clues for the next to figure out where to go next. But I mean, it's been a while since I've read that, so it's not going to be verbatim either, but it's like they're doing their thing and then they stop to have a break or lunch with coffee and sandwiches. So much so, I saw that the coffee and the sandwiches thing pop up so much. Anyway, I was about to say, is this all what Swedish people eat? That and Billy's Pan Pizza? But, yeah, that's a more telly way of doing it. It's fine. I was fine with it. It's been a while since I've read it. But it does exemplify that characters are doing, tending to important business. And, it should be important to let the reader know how long, doing work, like murder mystery kind of work, should take. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to touch on this part. I thought it was a good, like, even though I don't have like really specific examples, meaning like verbatim examples, other than like my fan fiction one, I did think that it was fine, because at least if you don't already, it makes you conscious or aware of this thing that is out there, and be able to take notice of it more, maybe implement it more, and whatever. So yeah. As for the Emerald Knight Part 6 right now, I think I will change a few details here and there, but I'm coming up on the end. Thank you.